You're probably wondering, yes, I did think of this costume last minute. No, I am not a makeup artist, and blonde is not my color. But we're gonna roll with this. It is the month of October. I want to wear a costume, and you're gonna have to deal with it. Isn't the dress cool though? Look at this. Hello, my name is Dazzy and welcome back to my channel. I'm actually re-recording this intro because I looked back at my footage and realized my camera doesn't like the fact that I'm wearing a blonde wig and keeps adjusting the brightness, so it causes this weird flash effect that is gonna happen for the rest of the video. I am so sorry. There's nothing I can do about it. Ever since I made this channel, I have been desperately wanting to do a spooky video for the month of Halloween. And every single year, I end up being busy by either work, school, life, something. It just never happened. Finally, I have time to squeeze in a video. Am I putting myself under unnecessary stress just to get this video out in October? Yes. Yes, I am. As some of you may know, I love horror, especially 80s horror films. But for me, it's kind of hard to find a really good one, but usually I try to find horror movies that have substance, like interesting characters, creativity, and how it overall stands on its own. I'm a little picky about horror movies, okay? And to wrap up the intro, I will be picking 9 movies, just like in my last video. So this time there's no focus in whether or not they're underrated, have a cult following, and all that. However, there will be a lot of B movies. That's just because I like B movies. And for each movie, I'll be summarizing the plot, some interesting facts about the movie, and my overall opinion with no spoilers. I hope you're ready for some spooky time. Here are my 9 favorite 80s horror films. Disclaimer. Viewer discretion is advised if you happen to watch any of these movies. They will contain mature or sensitive material. If you're easily spooked or grossed out, this might not be the video for you. I will try to limit the amount of horror content I show in this video. I didn't include a trigger warning section this time only because the genre is incredibly unhinged, violent, and can get borderline uncomfortable. The horror genre should be something you already proceed with caution. The first one on this list is rated PG-13 and might be the only one that you can watch with your kids if they're not too spooked by stop-motion creatures. The Gate was released in 1987 about 3 kids who accidentally unleash a horde of small demons from a hole in their backyard. In a classic story of good versus evil, the kids must overcome this hellish nightmare that could possibly take over the world. Some of the cast includes Stephen Dorff in his first acting debut, Krista Denton, Louis Tripp, Kelly Rowan, Jennifer Irwin, Deborah Grover, and Scott Denton. It is directed by Hungarian-Canadian Tibor Tak, and the screenwriter was an American film and television writer, director, and producer Michael Nankin. Tax would go on to film I, Madman in 1989, and they would both return to the film sequel The Gate 2, Trespassers in 1990. I hear it's not that great. I don't know, I haven't watched it, but I'll take everyone's word for it. Tibor Tax was approached with 3 scripts, this one included, and the other one being 1986 The Wrath, but passed on it. He explained what initially drew him to this film script in 2017 for thedailydead.com. I really feel like fairy tales are an important part of your development, your creativity, especially when you're young. I feel like you have to experience fear when you're young because it opens a floodgate to imagination. And the effects in this movie are so cool. You have the use of stop motion animation and forced perspective. Random William Cook was the visual effects supervisor and was the designer, sculptor, and animator for the Terror Dogs from the Ghostbusters, and is famously known for the visual effects for all 3 Lord of the Rings movies. 2 composers for this film were German composer Michael Honig and English musician and arranger John Peter Robinson. And the soundtrack has some fun bonus tracks with other artists. And my favorite has to be No Pleasure by Canadian musician Eva Everything, and Love Will Find a Way and Everybody's Running by Vince Carlucci. The love and passion the entire team brought onto this project really shows when you're watching the movie. Go check it out if you haven't.
Hey, did you guys dig in that hole again? We accidentally summoned demons who used to rule the universe to come and take over the world.
This movie I heard a lot of people talk about and really love, so I watched it before writing the script, and yeah, it lives up to the hype. Night of the Creeps was released in 1986. It starts out in 1959, where we see an object plummet to Earth like a meteor, and a boy accidentally swallows a space slug. In 1986, 2 freshmen roam the campus and stumble across the corpse of that same boy, and the slug-like creature is unleashed upon the campus. Some of the cast includes Jason Lively, Tom Atkins, Steve Marshall, Jill Whitlow, Alan Kaiser, and David Paymer. The film was written by Fred Dekker in 1 week, and it was his first directorial debut. He is best known for co Niro writing the 1987 comedy horror film The Monster Squad with his friend and collaborator Shane Black. For a script written in 1 week, it's really not that bad. He added in a lot of horror cliches and knew that he was doing it and pulled it off. And the movie is really funny. It has good humor and none of that, 80s humor. The character of JC was my favorite. I was pleasantly surprised to see a person with a disability in this movie. Don't really get to see it that often in most 80s movies. And JC was written so well compared to the main character. Chris was that boring blank slate main character archetype that falls for a girl and doesn't really have a personality other than not taking chances and being kind of a nerd, while his friend JC tries to be his wingman. And the main character's love interest Cynthia is really cool, really smart, and just overall a more interesting character than Chris and doesn't deserve a boring guy like him. I'm just saying. Zombie-esque horror movies aren't necessarily my favorite horror movies, but if they're interesting enough, I'll go ahead and give them a watch, and luckily this one definitely was.
Night of the Creeps. If you scream, you're dead.
I'm actually surprised this movie isn't talked about more when talking about 80s B horror films. I thought it was cool and suspenseful, and it actually adds a classic haunted house feel to the mixture. Hell Night was released in 1981 about a group of new fraternity and sorority pledges who spend the night in a gothic manor 12 years to the day since the former owner gruesomely murdered his family. But soon all of them are picked off one by someone lurking in the shadows. Some of the cast includes Linda Blair, the Scream Queen herself, Peter Barton, Vincent Van Patten, Kevin Brophy, Suki Goodwin, Jenny Newman, and Jimmy Sturdivant. It was directed by Tom DeSimone and written by Randy Feldman. Director Chuck Russell served as the executive producer, and his longtime collaborator, screenwriter Frank Darabont, as a production assistant. They both would go on to do 1987's Nightmare on Elm Street 3, Dream Warriors. Nice. And the 1988's remake of The Blob. It's a pretty generic slasher with the characters obviously staying the night at a gothic manor, and it is slow-paced. If you don't mind a slow burn, then you'll be okay, but if that's just not your type of movie, then I understand if you skip this one. But when it's good, it is good. I found the third half of the film to be the most engaging part because it churned out this atmosphere of suspense and had a really powerful ending that fundamentally saved the film for me. I could have easily not put this film on the list, but Linda Blair is wonderful. Believe it or not, she was nominated for a Razzie for Worst Actress because of this movie. Look, Razzies! I just want to talk. This is my ultimate favorite off of this whole list. I went cuckoo freaking bananas over how much I fell in love with this cheesy B movie. Chopping Mall was released in 1986 about 8 teenagers who decide to party after hours in a shopping mall. However, the mall is struck by lightning and causes the newly installed robot security guards to malfunction, and they go on a killing spree. Some of the cast includes Kelly Maroney, Barbara Crampton, Tony O'Dell, Nick Siegel, Russell Todd, Carrie Emerson, John Terlesky, Susie Slater, Mary Warnoff, Paul Bartel, and Dick Miller. It was directed by Jim Wynorski and also written by him, alongside Steve Mitchell. The film was originally going to be called Killbots. However, that didn't go well with test audiences, so they changed it to Chopping Mall, which I favor a lot more because it sounds more bad. Speaking of malls, you get two 80s malls at its peak. They originally wanted to shoot at the Beverly Center in California, but due to the fee, they couldn't afford to, and instead used exterior shots of the place. The interiors were actually filmed at Sherman's Oak Galleria, where 1982's Fast Time at Ridgemont High was filmed. I love how the movie tricks you by its cover and title. It makes you think it's this run-of-the-mill sci-fi horror movie, but as soon as the movie starts, it is an obvious allegory for anti-capitalism and diving into the subgenre of technology horror in the 80s.
The protectors will make Park Plaza the safest mall in the state. Trust me, absolutely nothing can go wrong.
The story itself has interesting and well-rounded characters and well-paced suspense. I hate to admit it, but I was literally emotionally invested in this movie, and by the end, I was maybe crying and shedding a tear or two. And Kelly Maroney is an amazing actress, and she is now one of my favorite final girls. This movie is just a masterpiece to me.
Chopping Mall, where shopping costs you an arm and a leg.
Thank you. Have a nice day.
No intro for this one. I'm just gonna say it. I know the first one personally means a lot to people, but I much prefer Sleepaway Camp 2.
You need to leave!
Before you come at me, I do think Sleepaway Camp is a solid movie, but it's not my favorite. And the sequel, in terms of tone, goes in a more campy direction, which I am forever biased to. And don't worry, I don't plan on spoiling anything that happened in the first movie for the people that haven't seen it yet. Sleepaway Camp 2: Unhappy Campers was released in 1988. It takes place 5 years after the first movie, and its main character, Angela, is now a camp counselor. The campers must abide by her strict morals and rules. If they don't, well, you know what happens. Some of the cast includes Pamela Springsteen, Renee Estevez, Tony Higgins, Carol Chambers, Valerie Hartman, Brian Patrick Clark, Susan Mary Snyder, Terry Hobbs, Kendall Bean, and Amy Fields. It was directed by producer and writer Michael A. Simpson and written by screenwriter Fritz Gordon. They would work together on the third installment, Sleepaway Camp 3: Teenage Wasteland, in 1989. Yes, I've seen it, and no, I did not like it. It was really boring. Pamela Springsteen kills it in Angela's role, in my opinion. It was interesting to see her character go from a quiet teen to a strict and chipper camp counselor that delivers one-liners and has likable sarcasm. And if you like a good summer camp slasher with black humor, then this is your movie. It could have easily been one of those horror films that uses the same shenanigans and same tropes that are always rehashed, but thankfully Pamela Springsteen brings such life to this movie. It is not perfect, although it is way bloodier and has creative deaths, so I love it.
Good night, campers.
This film is what got me hooked on the synth pop new wave band SSQ and the punk rock band 45 Grave. And it's the last zombie movie on this list, I promise. The Return of the Living Dead was released in 1985 about 2 employees accidentally releasing a deadly toxin at a medical supply warehouse. The vapor causes the dead to rise with the hunger for human brains. Lucky for them, there's a group of partying teenagers nearby. The cast is huge. It includes Clu Gulager, James Karen, Don Calfa, Tom Matthews, Beverly Randolph, John Philbin, Jules Shepard, Miguel A. Nunez Jr., Brian Peck, Linnea Quigley, Mark Venturini, Jonathan Terry, Alan Troutman, Drew Deegan, James D'Alessandro, and the voice of Cherry Davis. The director was Dan O'Bannon, a screenwriter and visual effects supervisor, and this was his first big film. He's best known for writing the screenplay for the 1979 movie Alien and contributing computer animation for Star Wars Episode 4. I'm aware that this movie has close ties to the 1968 film Night of the Living Dead and all of the notable people who worked on it and the whole retaining rights to the film's title, but I'm not going to go into that in this segment because it would be too long, so go read it on Wikipedia or something. It knows exactly what it is, and it serves just the right amount of good humor, practical effects, dumb punks, and a really rocking soundtrack. It is honest to gosh fun, and you cannot go wrong with this one. I consider myself to have an above average tolerance for horror movies. However, I think you guys know where I'm going with this. There are 2 zombies in this movie that I was genuinely kind of uncomfortable seeing on screen the first time that I saw it, but afterward I'm fine now. The zombies are called Tarman and Torso Zombie, and look at them. I mean, they didn't frighten me, but like I said, I was uncomfortable. That doesn't happen often, so kudos for this movie for actually making me feel that.
The Return of the Living Dead.
Now, as you can tell, I really like horror movies that metaphorically go off the rail and do something completely crazy from its original source material, and Prom Night 2 is no exception. I'm gonna give my own unpopular opinion, but the first Prom Night was an okay slasher and honestly isn't all that great. However, the sequel is beautiful, cheesy, and such an underrated gem, and actually has nothing to do with the original. Hello, Mary Lou Prom Night 2 was released in 1987. A prom queen in 1957 is killed in a tragic prank gone wrong. She comes back 30 years later as an evil spirit to unleash havoc on her old high school and possesses the body of a teenage girl who is a prom queen contender. Some of the cast includes Wendy Leon, Lisa Sarage, Michael Ironside, Louis Ferreira, Brock Simpson, Beverly Hendry, Beth Gondek, Richard Monette, Terry Hawks, Robert Lewis, Steve Atkinson, and Loretta Bailey. It was directed by Bruce Pittman, and the musical composer was Paul Zaza, who also did the original Prom Night and returned to score this film. It was originally going to be called The Haunting of Hamilton High, but as you might have guessed it, they changed it to Prom Night 2 to bank off the original. It received mixed reviews, and I can see why. The story is mediocre at best, but it's better to not take the whole movie seriously. The performances are really good, the writing isn't half bad and pretty entertaining at times, and the practical effects are awesome. It's a strange little flick, but it holds up as its own standalone movie. Mary Lou's story does continue in Prom Night 3, The Last Kiss, that I don't plan on seeing. To be honest, it doesn't look all that great, even on a campy level.
See you later, alligator.
She took the keys to my Cadillac car.
Hello, Mary Lou. Prom Night 2.
Left me stranded in a Kalamazoo.
I also watched this movie before writing the script, and I kinda, maybe, sorta was obsessed with it for like a whole week. It was a normal fixation, I swear. The Hitcher was released in 1986 about a young man road tripping across the country from Chicago to San Diego. Lonely and naive, he lets a hitcher into his car, but soon realizes there's something off about this man, and he turns out to be a serial killer. After escaping from him, the young man is stalked by the killer in a twisted game of cat and mouse. Some of the cast includes Rutger Hauer, C. Thomas Howell, Jennifer Jason Leigh, and Jeffrey DeMunn. It was directed by Robert Harmon. The story was written by screenwriter, director, and novelist Eric Red, also known for writing 1987's Near Dark. The editing was done by Frank J. Oriosti, and the cinematography was done by legendary John Seale, who worked on movies in the 80s like Rain Man, The Dead Poets Society, and even movies such as Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone and Mad Max Fury Road. This can be considered a horror movie, but it's depending on which website you read. It will usually be listed as a thriller, so I'm kind of cheating with this one. I'm not the biggest fan of thrillers, but I was at the edge of my seat while watching this. The horror bits come from the dark storytelling and the horrific murder and violence that takes place either on screen or off screen, which creates such fantastic suspense. I've seen C. Thomas Howell in his iconic 1985 movies, The Secret Admirer and The Outsiders, and I already know he's a fantastic actor. But holy hell, did he blow it out of the park with this one. I believe he was 17 or 18 when filming this movie, but it is such a perfect transition into playing more mature roles. And the antagonist was mind-blowingly fantastic. God, he was just so creepy, I love him. Rutger Hauer is best known for his role in 1982's Blade Runner, but I don't think I've seen him in anything else. Wait, let me just check his credits really quickly. Oh, wait. He voiced Xehanort in Kingdom Hearts 3. This movie can be picked apart and analyzed for hours, from its incredibly clever themes to its beautiful, beautiful cinematography with a haunting soundtrack by musician and composer Mark Isham. I need to restrain myself from gushing over this movie any further, so let's move on to the last movie.
The terror starts the moment you stop for the Hitcher.
What do you want?
I want you to stop me.
Now, this movie is so likely to gross someone out if they are incredibly squeamish to body horror, gore, and brutal deaths. I wasn't expecting to love this movie as much as I did, but I went absolutely nuts over the special effects. And honestly, I haven't seen a horror movie quite like this one. Demon, or as it's called in Italian, Demoni, was released in 1985 about a group of people who are randomly selected to join a sneak peek film screening at a theater. Then they are trapped as the theater is infested with demons that are slaughtering and possessing everyone one by one. This is a big cast, and not only that, they are Italian, so just for your sake, I am going to name a few. Whew, okay, I am ready to butcher some Italian names. It was my choice. I did this to myself. The cast includes Natasha Ovi, Paolo Cozzo, Kelly Suavi, Urbano Barberini, Carlo Zini, Bobby Rhodes, Geretta, Fabiola Toledo, Coletta Elmi, Fiore Argento, Guido Baldi, Bettini Ciampolini, and Giuseppe Marro Ciano. Oh my god, I am so sorry if any of those sounded very unnatural. I'm trying my best here. I'd like to quickly add that the whole cast is super talented and they rocked my socks off, especially the two actresses who ended up turning into demons first. They were really cool. The director was Lamberto Bava. He was the first of the third generation of Italian filmmakers. His grandfather, Eugenio Bava, was a cameraman and optics effects artist during the Italian silent film era, and his father, Mario Bava, was a famous cinematographer, special effects designer, and director. So this guy knew exactly what he was doing. The musical score for this movie is iconic and was done by Claudio Simonetti, an Italian musician and composer who has frequently collaborated with the master of the thrill, Dario Argento. He was one of the people who contributed to the screenplay. They worked together on films like Suspiria and Phenomena. The soundtrack also includes music from Motley Crue, Billy Idol, Scorpions, Rick Springfield, Go West, and many more. Gian Lorenzo Battaglia was the cinematographer, and boy does this movie look insanely good. My favorite scene in this movie is the one that the poster is based on. Chills. Not scary chills, exciting chills. The lighting and the framing of the angle is just... Like I said before, the special effects are crazy good and very nasty. It was done by Sergio Stiviletti, who returned for Demons 2, which I will definitely check out, and worked with Dario Argento on his 1987 film, Opera. This is the perfect movie to watch with friends because you don't really have to pay all that much attention to the story or the characters, in my opinion. The film primarily carries itself with its unique style and the fact that it's a neat splatterfest movie.
Demons. They will make cemeteries their cathedrals, and the cities will be your tombs. Will you survive it? Demons.
And that is my list for my 9 favorite 80s horror films. And just for fun, I wanted to include an honorable mentions list. Slumber Party Massacre 2, Reanimator, Pumpkinhead, Silent Night, Deadly Night. Thank you so much for watching my video until the end and for being a champ. And if any of these movies interest you, definitely go check them out. And don't forget to hit that like button and ring that bell so you can be notified of all of my future videos. I hope you all have a good week and remember to take care of yourselves, and I'll see you all on the next one. Bye!
Never before in the history of the American stage have you seen such high drama.
You don't need nice boys when you live on Skid Row, Mr. Bushnick.
Suspense.
Little red dots all over the floor.
And romance. It's bone-chilling. It's spine-tingling. It's a musical. It's a nifty laugh riot, entertaining as it is exotic. Little Shop of Horrors. Don't shop around. Go see it at the Westwood Playhouse.